Greetings, I'm Zorch, and today I'm going to be playing Tabletop Simulator. More specifically, I'm going to be showing you how to play the Snowdonia module that I made for Tabletop Simulator. So to be able to do that, first of all, you're going to have Tabletop Simulator. You can get this on Steam. I'm sure that most people who are watching this probably already own it. If you don't, you can just search for it on the storefront. Just look for Tabletop Simulator and pay for it and download it. And if you haven't paid for it and still playing this, shame on you. Go buy it. The next thing that you're going to want to do before you actually run Tabletop Simulator is go to the Steam Workshop. Whenever you get to the Steam Workshop page, you'll want to search for the expansions that you're going to want to add into it. And in this case, you're going to want to add the Snowdonia expansion. So just do a search for Snowdonia, and mine should be the only one that comes up. And then you're going to want to click on the little green plus symbol that subscribes to that particular expansion. Doing this is good for two reasons. One, you will get access to the mod whenever you want, and two, it will keep the mod updated. Every time I change anything and update it, it will automatically apply to the copy that you have on your system. So after you subscribe to all the mods that you want, just start up Tabletop Simulator, and you will get the menu screen. Now, to just explore the mod without actually playing it with other people, click on Single Player here, and then you're going to want to click on this blue Workshop button. This will give you a list of all of the mods that are currently installed on your system. If you had already gotten the game and say you wanted to play it with other people, you would instead click on the multiplayer button, and then you would want to host a server. You should name it something that other people can find. Give it a password if you don't want other people that you don't know coming in. Set the number of players you want to be able to get in, and then hit Create Server. You can type in Snowdonia up at the top here, and it will show up. And then all you need to do is click on it and it will load. Load times, of course, will vary depending on your connection speed and your computer, but keep in mind that you should let the entire mod load before you start trying to mess around with it too much. Much like the physical copy of the game, there's going to be a few steps that you need to take before you're ready to play. The first thing that you'll want to do is pick your scenario. I've imported all the scenarios that I could possibly find at the time of this recording, and I have them lined up here on the side of the board. The top one is actually going to be used if you have more or less than 3 players. The second stack contains all of the promo cards, as well as some extra trains. And then we've got the Britannia Bridge and Zugspitzbahn railway scenarios combined together, Jungfrau Mount Washington, the Daffodil Line, and the Necropolis and Neuhauser Rocklebahn. In this particular example, I am just going to play with the original base deck, which is up here at the top. Since this is a 3-player game that I'm setting up with the base scenario, we're not going to need any of these extra cards, really, unless you want to play with the promos, except for one. In this particular stack, you're going to want to dig in until you find this particular card here, the extra build space. The trains do not allow for double-sided cards of different orientations, so I just included this one separately. You're going to want to take this one and put it aside someplace where you'll be able to get to it later. So if you feel like making sure it doesn't go anywhere, you can right-click on it and lock it so that it doesn't fall off the table. After you've gotten that card out, you can actually select everything that's over here on this side of the table and delete it all, because we won't be needing it for the base scenario. We won't need this bag either. An important aspect of using Tabletop Simulator is being able to use a deck and be able to manipulate it properly. If you click and hold it, you'll pick up the whole deck. If you just click on the deck and quickly move your mouse to one side, you'll take the card off at the top. This is an important skill to master if you really want to be able to play the game quickly. I've included some reference cards down here to help you set up the draw bag, and we'll do that right now. I've also included the startup goods already in their spaces, so all you need to do is just add more cubes to the bag. Since this is a 3-player game, we'll be using all of the event cubes. Simply draw a box around them, shake to bring them all together into a nice little clump, hover them over the bag and let go of them, and they should all drop in nicely. Next, since this is a 3-player game, we're going to need 20 iron cubes. If you need to look at a card a little bit closer, hold down the Alt button while you're hovering your mouse over it, and you'll get a nice magnified view of it. So as we can see, we are going to need 20 iron cubes, 11 stone cubes, and then all of the remaining coal, and I'll get into that in a second. Where do we get these extra goods, you may ask? Well, it's pretty easy. All you need to do is hover your mouse over one of the goods, hit Control and C, hover over the bag, and now hit Control V 20 times. And then do the same thing with the stone. First hit Control C, hover over the bag, and Control V 11 times. And if they bounce out, just pick them up and throw them back in. Next, we're going to need to add in the coal, but before we can do that, we're going to have to lay out our trains. Move the reference sheet off to the side. Keep it someplace where you'll be able to look at it later, because you may need some of the other rules, especially for scoring at the end of the game. I like to keep them off to the side and then lock them. Next, hover your mouse over the stack of trains, click and hold, and shake them back and forth. This will give them a nice shuffle. Now, just like I showed before, deal out 6 base trains down here at the bottom of the board. This last train we can delete. We're not going to be needing it. Next, we're going to want to put coal on all the trains that need it. So, simply hover over the coal, hit Control C, hover over the trains, and then give each one the coal that it needs. Now, I know that the game comes with 14 coal total, but you might not know that. So if you need a refresher, just go up here to the menu button and click the rules. One of the lines in there says there should be 14 coal in play. This will help you remember. So next, just subtract the amount of coal that's out on the board and put the remainder from the 14 into the bag. And that sets up the draw bag. This works pretty much just like a deck of cards. If you click on it and drag quickly, you'll take out whatever was dropped in last. But since we don't exactly want to be getting things out of here in order, we're going to want to shuffle it up. To do that, simply click and hold on it, then give it a shake. You can also right-click quickly. Then drop it back down, and you'll have a nice random supply of cubes. Next, I'll show you how to set up your contracts. This works pretty much the same way it did with the trains. But first, you're going to want to go through and pull out all of the contracts that you're not going to need. Since we're using a 3-player setup, we're actually going to use all of the contracts. So, again, to grab just the top card, click and move to one side quickly, and you'll grab that top card. If you click and hold, you'll grab the entire deck. Next, if you hit the F key, you'll flip the deck over. Now, you can shuffle the deck to your heart's content, either again by shaking the mouse or by right-clicking rapidly, then dropping the entire deck into the space on the board. Next, you're going to want to draw out the 3 top cards, placing them in these spaces, and then looking at the weather that's on the back of them. And by the way, to get these little arrows, all you need to do is press tab. Next, we're going to use our cut and paste skills again to set up the weather track here. First, since this space has nothing in it, we're going to want to fill it with the weather that corresponds to the back of this card at the beginning of the game. In this case, it happens to be fog. So Control C over the fog disk, Control V to place a disk there. Then we're going to want to put a rain disk in this space, because that's what matches the back of this contract. Finally, you're going to want to flip over all 3 of these contracts to their contract side. The game would be pretty difficult to play if you didn't have any player pieces, so I'm going to show you how to set those up for each player. First of all, you're going to want to select the entire group of player pawns. Just do that by clicking and dragging a box around them. Next, hit Control C, go over to a place where you want them to pop up at, and hit Control V, and now you've got a nice brand new set of player pieces. Now, we're going to want to differentiate them from each other. So, select them again, right-click on them, and this time you're going to want to click Color Tint. This will let you tint them any color that you want. I recommend tinting them where the players are sitting around the table as their same color, so it's a little bit easier to keep them straight, but you can also use the colors that are included with the base game. I'll use a combination of the 2 for this example. And we're going to want to do it all again for the other player. And you're going to want to randomly give somebody the start player. In this case, I'm just going to give it to blue. Now you're going to need to lay out your stations. You're going to want to do it numerically by the number that's in the upper right-hand corner. One of the first things I do when I start up Tabletop Simulator is I usually turn my rotation snap all the way up, but in this case I'm going to put it on 45 so that we can get some nice, easily snapped angled cards. Since this is a 3-player game, we're actually not going to need the passing loop card, so we can just delete it. Next we're going to lay out our track cards, and the number of track is shown in the upper left-hand corner. That's how much track goes before each station. Our track is up here at the top of the board. You can just grab the whole deck and give it a shuffle before throwing them out. While I'm doing this, I'll make sure to let you know that when you're playing Snowdonia, you are not going to need the card hands. So you can click up on Host, go to Options, and then turn off the card hands by unchecking them, hitting Apply, and then saving and exiting. This will just keep the cards from flipping over for no apparent reason. Also, you can zoom in and out whenever you're zoomed in on something by rolling the mouse wheel. Now, really, you don't have to do this, but to save your sanity, I highly recommend it. Select all the cards that you've just put down and lock them all. You'll see why in just a moment. You can delete any remaining track cards. We won't be needing them for the rest of the game. And now we come to everybody's favorite part of Snowdonia, and that's putting out all the rubble. Anywhere that you see a shovel, you're going to want to put rubble out on those spaces until it matches the number that is on the card. So this space needs 3, this space here needs 2. You're going to want to do that all the way around the board, not forgetting these over here. These are 3 and 3 each. To get more than one item out of a bag, you can click and drag quickly to grab the first one, then hover over the bag and right-click. You'll reach inside and grab another one. This way you can get a whole handful of rubble and put it out quickly. And that's the setup for a 3-player game of Snowdonia. I know it takes a little bit of doing, but one of the good things about Tabletop Simulator is that you can go up to the menu and save the game. If you do that, you will have a save space that you will be able to call on anytime you want to set the game up again quickly, unless of course you want to re-randomize everything. I know it takes a little bit of setup, but I hope that doesn't scare you away, because this is a fantastic game and it is worth every second of it. So, I hope you'll join me sometime playing a game of Snowdonia. In the meantime, safe travels.